Several years ago, I found myself walking through a really small town in Missouri. The town's name was Liberal. That's right, Liberal, Missouri. Very, very small town. In fact, the 2008 census recorded that that particular town only had 719 people. But Liberal, Missouri holds a very, very interesting history. It was founded back in the 1800s by a guy by the name of George Walser. Walser had a single objective. He basically wanted to develop a town without any religious influence. Basically, they were going to outlaw any form of Christianity, anything where there might be a semblance of God. And so Walser built his town. He invited folks from all over the nation to come to this experiment, a town without any religion. And as you can imagine, people came. Saloons went up, all kinds of bars, but there were no churches, no houses of worship. In fact, after missionaries got word that Walser was building this place, they started trying to come in, evangelize people. Walser actually put up barbed wire fences around his town to keep the religious people out. And you say, well, what's the big deal? Well, we see today in our modern culture a very similar situation going on. Basically, people trying to get rid of morality. They don't want any kind of a religion. They don't want God. In fact, in many cases, in our culture right now, they're actually defunding police. And you look at me and you say, yeah, so what's the big deal? Here's the big deal. George Walser's town of Liberal, it was a failed experiment. It actually imploded, as you can imagine. You take morals out of a community of people who began to act more and more crazy, more and more immoral. And eventually, here's what happened. Walser found himself inviting, even begging churches, religious people into his community. Again, we look around at what's going on today with some of the rioting. We look around at what's going on with some of the outrage. And what we see is a people who basically, they don't want anyone telling them that there's a right and a wrong. They want to get rid of God. They want to get rid of the police. They want to get rid of all kinds of authority. And as they're doing that, here's what we're finding. You take away the police. You take away religion. And all of a sudden, crime goes up. You see, there has to be a standard. This week, one of the things that I want you to think about is what is our standard for right and wrong in our culture if we remove God? Psalm 14 verse 1 says, "The fool has said, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works." Friends, when you take God out of the picture, ultimately what you end up with is debauchery and chaos. I hope that as you go through your week and you hear some of the news that's going on, I hope you'll remember Liberal, Missouri, that failed experiment. And I hope you realize what we all need is God. Hope you'll think on these things.